Hi, I'm Dr. Heather Sandison, and this last week I read a paper that made me want to vomit. I was so frustrated. I was moved to tears because we realized that unfortunately one of the seminal papers that came out in 2006 around Alzheimer's research, claiming that beta amyloid plaques were the cause of dementia, was proven to be fraudulent. That in fact, the images used for that paper to make that claim were doctored and were not accurate. And so many billions of dollars of research funding, $1.6 billion just in the last year from the National Institutes on Aging and the NIH, was used to fund amyloid beta-related research in dementia. We are at a time when the baby boomers are aging, and we are going to have more seniors arriving at the time in their lives when they're at very high risks of developing dementias. And we have dedicated decades of very smart people's time, of lots of effort, pharmaceutical funding and government funding towards a beta amyloid plaque hypothesis that was based on fraudulent data. This is absolutely heartbreaking. The only good of this is that it tells us that we discovered it and we can redouble our efforts onto things that actually work. What's amazing and what I can't wait to share with you is that what we are doing in diet and lifestyle, the Bredesen approach to dementia, works. Now, it takes work. It isn't as simple as putting an IV in or swallowing a pill each day. This does require difficult lifestyle changes, including diet, exercise, prioritizing sleep, prioritizing stress management, and yes, maybe swallowing some supplements and considering bioidentical hormone replacement and appropriate medical interventions for things like sleep apnea, blood pressure management, and maybe diabetes. These things all come together to stack on top of each other. They create a complex intervention, but one that matches the complexity of the disease that is Alzheimer's or dementia. Over the course of history, there have been several missteps in the scientific community, starting in 1906 when Dr. Alzheimer's, diagnosed his patient Auguste with Alzheimer's disease, or he noticed that the plaques and tangles in her brain after death were associated with her memory loss. It was an early onset, so she was in her 40s and 50s when this happened. This is not the common later stage senile dementia. This was quite a different disease. And Dr. Alzheimer's, his mentor, was publishing a book. It was a textbook on neurology, and he was looking for new information to put into that book. And he took a case study and put it into a textbook. This very, very, very rarely happens in medicine. Usually, if it's in a textbook, that means there's years of data behind it. We are certain of the conclusions that we're drawing, or more certain at least. In science, that's always hard to get to 100% certainty. We almost never do. But what he did was take something that was very new, that we knew almost nothing about. There was only one case study that was published around this, and amplified the message to other doctors in the field in an effort to sell the newest edition of his textbook. Fast forward to the 1970s, there was another strategic move made at National Institutes of Aging, a newly recognized institute under the NIH, or the National Institutes of Health. And in order to get funding, what the leaders at the National Institutes of Aging did was they basically lobbied to make Alzheimer's disease the umbrella term for dementia. But Alzheimer's disease and the diagnosis there was a moving target. And so this is it's changed from a clinical diagnosis to then a pathophysiological diagnosis based on the number of amyloid plaques found in a patient's workup. And what's troubling about this is that when we equate amyloid beta plaques with Alzheimer's, the data doesn't stack up. So even though it happened for strategic reasons, for funding reasons several times, it doesn't work in practice. And I'll tell you a couple of reasons why. One, if you take the population, 98 to 99% of the population have beta amyloid plaques present in their brain. So you and I, the high probability is that we both have amyloid plaques present. Amyloid plaques do not equate to dementia. You can have lots of them and not have cognitive decline. Similarly, if you take all of the people on the planet over 65 years of age, 30% of them have enough beta amyloid plaques in their brain to be diagnosed with Alzheimer's based on this criteria that I hope you've realized, makes no sense. What we're most interested in is not beta amyloid plaques. We can have plenty of them and still have perfect cognitive function. We can actually have very few of them and have reduced cognitive function as well. It goes both directions. They do not equate each other, regardless of the fact that so many research dollars have been thrown at solving the problem of beta amyloid plaques. Another piece of data here is that when a drug works to reduce beta amyloid plaques, it never, 99.6% of the time, it doesn't help with cognitive function. So you don't get cognitive benefits. And what do I care about? I care about my patients. I care about whether or not they have independence, whether or not they have their dignity, whether or not they can drive to church or to work, whether or not they can care for their grandchildren. And that is about cognitive function, not beta amyloid plaques. So what do we know? What do we know about how we can improve cognitive function? We know that when we take a systematic approach, when we systematically and comprehensively go through all of the things that we know impact cognitive function and cell function in the brain, we can get reversal of cognitive decline. We can get cognitive improvement. We can get the reversal of dementia, not just the slowing, but in many, many, many cases, in fact, most cases in my office, we see the reversal of cognitive decline and improvement in function. This is so exciting, and I love the opportunity to share this with you. Unfortunately, the science so far, from the conventional perspective, has taken us down this dead-end path. But right now, we are learning so many exciting things. Just in the last 3 to 5 years, we've learned so much. Both my team and Dr. Bredeson's team have worked hard on the science to show us, and so that we can all learn what reverses Alzheimer's. We know right now that toxins cause Alzheimer's. We know that nutrient deficiencies cause Alzheimer's. We know that Alzheimer's is sometimes called type 3 diabetes, and glucose dysregulation or glycotoxicity can cause Alzheimer's. We know that trophic dysregulation, or the absence of the hormones that support neurocognitive function, when they're not there, our brains don't work. We know that a lack of movement can contribute to dementia. We know that sleep apnea, or the lack of oxygen getting to the brain, particularly at night when we sleep, can have big impacts on cognitive function. We also know that traumatic brain injuries can cause types of dementia. When we can catalog all of these, and again, systematically go through each of them and get rid of the things that interrupt brain function, cell function, neuronal function, and then optimize for all of the things that help support it, we can get the reversal of this awful, absolutely tragic disease process.